If kids at public schools or elsewhere see that you have eaten a cookie and it looks like the shape of a gun, you won't be arrested. United Nations may soon be paying water bills in Detroit. That's up on Infowars.com. UK begins beta testing cashless society. Senator Feinstein says there will be plots to kill Americans because of the ISIS threat, publicly run and funded by her and her controllers. Cheney says another 9/11 coming, but far deadlier if you don't give up all your rights. He actually says if we ask questions, if we debate this, yes, don't say anything or terrorists will get you. Sounds like being held hostage to me. Hillary Clinton calls for harsh restrictions on alternative media, attacks the Drudge Report, and Bloomberg admits there's a vast liberal conspiracy of billionaire globalist meeting to try to pass gun control. They're not liberal or conservatives. That's just how they divide their two controlled camps, folks. They are the globalist scourge, though you do have a libertarian-esque Tea Party move with UKIP here and the Tea Party in the United States, UKIP in England, where David Icke is, and then Tea Party here in the United States, that is challenging global governance. You have the Prime Minister of Australia, who got voted in promising to repeal the carbon tax that's really hurting the people, introducing a bill to do just that. You have the Supreme Court ruling that the EPA needs to stop shutting down all the power plants because the people are getting upset. The globalist agenda is being exposed. Here's another headline out of the Columbia Journalism Review. Local cops can track your phone, and they do it without warrants, and the government doesn't want you to know how they do it through the Federal Threat Fusion Center. Again, they don't want to have a debate about the man behind the curtain. But Todos out there, love him or hate him, like David Icke and so many others, have shocked people out of their stupor, out of their trance-like medical state. People grown up in front of television, on record, go pull up the studies, get Alzheimer's, get brain disorders. Just type in Alzheimer's television viewing, or type in brainwaves lowered television, or television pessimism. It causes pessimism that then triples your chances of dementia. People are watching weaponized television. They're in a near trance-like state with the chemicals in the food and the water exacerbating it as an adjuvant to accelerate that. And somebody like David Icke, with all of his best-selling books and his research, is able to flip a switch with a narrative, whether you agree with it or not, that so much of it is now revealed to be true, that is able to get them out of their trance. You can say what you want about Infowars.com and the way I come off sometime, but it doesn't matter. It's real, it's primitive, it's human. Toto is just a little dog, but is able to pull the curtain back and show the controller, who's projecting this big supreme being image up there as a giant floating phantasm. We're here not to even analyze the politics of it anymore. We've proven all this. We're here now to talk to those that are still conditioned and have pre-programmed conditioning, to understand that you are being controlled and that where you're going is a very bad place. And the reason you feel powerless, or the reason you're laughing even though you know you're controlled, is because you've been preconditioned, and that's artificial. That's an automatic response that has been programmed into you, literally. They had that perfected 100 years ago with the psychology. Now it's so advanced, but it doesn't matter how advanced the mind control is. If you can step out of it, look at it from the outside, and realize that there's infinite love and infinite peace in the universe, and that the globalists aren't in even control of this planet fully. They're trying to get control, building an artificial construct to create a false consciousness, a false synthetic reality. They've been successful with some people 100%, others by degree, but there's a giant split happening now with either those accelerating their awakening or those that are falling deeper into the control. And we shouldn't get mad at those people. We should feel really sorry for them, because it's like the body snatchers already got them. That's my allegory. Now, joining us is the former world champ soccer goalie, BBC News and sports presenter, the former head of the Green Party until he traveled to Peru. And I would liken it to Saul of Tarsus being knocked off his horse, literally, And again, this was 20 years ago, began or plus, just seeing the world a different way. And some people see the world in a flash a different way. Other people, it's incremental. But David Icke began to do his research then, and so much of what he said that was fantastical is now common knowledge and commonplace. So we salute him for his success in getting people outside the matrix and getting them to take the red pill. And there's only a few of us that came in that early wave to not just challenging the New World Order and its political systems, but going deeper into the larger paradigm. And I've got to say, again, it's important to recognize trailblazers like David Icke. It's important to recognize this radio show and you, the listeners, who are just as important as I am. Literally, half the people I see on the street know who I am now, and most of them agree with us. Most of the military I talk to are listeners and agree with us. People are really waking up, and that shows the power I've had in 19 years, the power David's had in 20-plus years, the power you have. Where is the next David Icke, the next Alex Jones? You are in your area, and it's about this journey and this animating contest. And you see the wars breaking out, the famines, the dollar devaluation. The globalists are emerging, announcing their world government. They announced the United States of Europe with no sovereignty yesterday. That was in the Financial Times of London. So it's all happening. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want. David Icke, thank you so much for joining us from your TV studios there in London. I know you want to get into ISIS and the perfect model of problem, reaction, solution, but I want to do that in the next segment, the 5 minutes we've got. In fact, I'm going to skip this break so we have more time. I want you to break down where you think we are, using a football analogy, in the game. I'd say we were 3 or 4 goals behind, but now we've gotten 3 or 4 more goals, and we're neck and neck with a quarter left here, and we've got the initiative, but the enemy is going to strike back. Where do you say we are in this magical time?
Well, I think that this whole ISIS situation in the Middle East is the start of a whole new stage from the point of view of the agenda. And there's no doubt that more and more people are beginning to see through the cover stories, because in the end, it's a perception deception. It's all a perception deception. It's programming a perception of reality that suits the agenda for you to have. So in the Middle East at the moment, we've got a kind of great cocktail of perception deceptions. We've got the deception that this ISIS came out of nowhere, that it's come out organic and just appeared. And then we've got the perception deception that the ISIS operation is imposing upon its followers that it's some kind of holy war jihad on behalf of Islam. And so you've got the perception deceived going on social media and urging people to become terrorists and join the jihad. And they're just playing their part in destroying what they claim to be fighting for, i.e. that whole region of the Middle East and the religion of Islam. So it's a perception deception everywhere. The perception deception of climate change caused by human activity, which is just a scientific nonsense. And everywhere you see this. And if we, the fork in the road, Alex, is what is your perception? What is the source of your perception? Are you having it downloaded by believing what the authorities in all their forms tell you, all the experts tell you? Or are you actually taking your mind back, filtering the information, checking it out, looking at alternatives in explaining that same situation, and then coming to your own conclusion? Because that's the difference. It's the difference between the free thinker who does not have a belief system to defend, does not have a belief system repelling all borders. I'm not listening to that, because if that's anything like true, then my belief system must be wrong, and that can't be true. So you have these belief system people that just resist anything that challenges the belief system. And if you are going to break out of that program, because it's beliefs, perceptions downloaded that lead to the world that we live in. If you're going to break out of that, you've got to start to free think and work it out for yourself.
I agree. Let me throw this at you. I remember reading, to paraphrase some quotes of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, and these are papers that later came out where he was writing to his propaganda corps, and he said, listen, it needs to be simple. It needs to be dumbed down. We need to speak to people's laziness, to want to buy into our narrative. And the truth is 100% public that for 4 years almost now, they've been arming on the border with Iraq and Jordan and Turkey, al-Qaeda groups out of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, under different banners of al-Qaeda. You can see it's the official al-Qaeda flag of the Wahhabists. Their flags even say Osama bin Laden on a bunch of them. I've learned to read it like I know a Texas flag. It's them, the black flags of al-Qaeda. And they have been given a base to try to take over Syria, kill all the Christians, 300,000 dead. And now they're flooding in. And our own government says, get rid of the prime minister. He hadn't played ball. We want to break the country in 3. But we can't beat ISIS. Obama came out today and said, of course they can't beat them. Because with a deal in Saudi Arabia for taking the blame for 9/11, even though Iraq got attacked, they are now giving the Middle East to them, just like British intelligence set up Saudi Arabia to begin with and had them take over Syria. And this is setting up the Middle East under al-Qaeda. And then down the road, they'll probably even overthrow Saudi Arabia. That's being said now. And then we'll have a huge, giant war with that. I mean, it just goes on over and over again. It's all public. And as you said, though, now Dianne Feinstein, Dick Cheney, all the usual suspects are saying, give your rights up. Terrorists are going to hit us any minute. Oh, we've got to stick our hands down your pants, David, while the U.S. border is now officially wide open. And they pay, the Border Patrol pays. They don't just let them in. They pay to ship them in to the interior. So it's all a giant hoax. And we've reached this point where they just don't care. What's happening, David?
Well, in this situation at the moment in the Middle East with this ISIS, and of course ISIS is one of the names for the goddess in the religion of this cabal. And if you notice, by calling it ISIS, they have got newsreaders and news reporters to use their language, like ISIS forces have taken Mosul. ISIS forces are closing in on Baghdad. ISIS has done this. ISIS has done that. They must be laughing their socks off.
And of course, as you know, all these big events, talk about the Olympics and symbolism, and literally they believe it gives their God power that is now being invoked as lesser magic.
Yeah, I mean, symbolism is just an information field. You see, the importance of symbolism is in understanding the nature of reality. I'm talking to you now, and you're hearing words, but the words are not passing between me and you. A vibrational field of information generated by the vocal cords is passing between me and people listening to me now. And then they decode that. And when they've decoded it, when the brain decodes it, then they can hear the words. They turn them into words. Now, symbols are information. They're information fields at their base level, and they are entering the perception, the mind, not through the ears like this, but through the eyes. And the vast, overwhelming majority of information that we receive is through the sight sense. Now, unless it's kind of subliminally broadcast, when someone is saying something, at least it's conscious because you're hearing it. You are aware that some noise, some speech is taking place. But symbolism, the information fields of symbolism, they are entering through the eyes. And it's a stunning figure. The tiny amount of visual information that we actually register and see that gets to the brain compared with this tidal wave of visual information that's hitting the subconscious and registering at that level without us being consciously aware we're even seeing it. That's where subliminal advertising comes in, and that's where subliminal symbolism comes in. So it's not just putting symbols around for a bit of fun. They're actually subliminally downloading information. And what we have in the Middle East, which in this ISIS situation, which I think it's worth emphasizing, is the elephant in the living room called Israel. Now, Israel is, whenever there's anything going on in the Middle East, people like Netanyahu and co. are up there immediately, can't find a microphone quick enough, saying it's a threat to Israel. Oh my God, we need help, or we're going to do this. It's a threat to Israel. And what's been really, a shouted silence, if you like, is that this time there is none of that. Now, if you're Israel, this sliver of land of less than 8 million people, and this ISIS group is overrunning great chunks of Iraq, threatening to do the same in Jordan. They have an open demand or ambition to take over Syria, Iraq, and what they call the Levant, which includes Israel.
And chop the head, and chop the head off of the king of Jordan.
Yeah, I've just this story here. Netanyahu suggests pinning ISIS against Iran. That's the headline. It's in the Jerusalem Post. But this is what he says. Israeli Prime Minister suggested the United States should largely stay out of the fight and instead allow the parties to weaken one another. Now, can you imagine in any other situations in the past, an Israeli prime minister saying that in the face of what's happening with Israel as one of the stated targets of this ISIS organization? And then you've got the American government that is not kind of being gung-ho, as they almost always are. Oh, yes, we've got to go in and stop this. And it seems to me this, Alex, that what we're looking at is in the end, Western U.S. cabal dominated, controlled operation in this ISIS with its billions of dollars in funding and, of course, all the American weaponry that it's inherited from taking over parts of Iraq and no doubt inherited in other ways as well.
Benghazi.
We've got this situation where I think that they want this to kick off. They want it to kick on. They want this ISIS organization to get a bigger foothold in this region. And then at the end of it, when it really starts to move in Israel's direction, is to say we must go in and protect Israel. Because, of course, they've all said, America not least, that they will protect Israel at all costs. And when you look at the Albert Pike scenario in the letter about, playing the Muslims world off against the political Zionists, as he called them, to create World War III. And, you're starting to see possible scenarios leading in that direction because of what's happening here. The other thing, Alex, is Iran, because I've been writing in my books for years that the plan was to create a massive rift and war, in effect, in the Muslim world between the Shia and the Sunnis. And here you have a situation where you've got the allegedly, anyway, Sunni ISIS against the Shia-dominated government in Baghdad, in Iraq. And then you've got the center of the Shia world. 89% of Iranians are Shia. And so you've got this rather bizarre situation, Alex, recently, which I know people were going, what's going on here? When after castinating and condemning Iran all these years and saying we need to bomb them, take out these nuclear facilities, they now started, kind of saying, well, maybe we ought to have some kind of discussion with them about what we do over this thing. And I think the answer to why is they want to draw Iran into this Shia Sunni conflict, because once Iran's involved in that, it will never get out.
No, that's it.
And what you then got is this mass of interconnected conflict in that same part of the world.
No, that's it. And look, here's the bottom line. It is a Saudi Arabian, NATO, globalist-backed giant army formed and trained in Turkey, Jordan, and Western Iraq. They were given bases. We reported on this 3 years ago in Western Iraq. U.S. forces trained them. It's a giant army with thousands of vehicles able to roll right in, and the Iraqi military was told to stand down. The U.S. military didn't go in like the Highway of Death in 1991 in Kuwait and take them out. And then now Obama says there's nothing we can do about it because this is an official launch to bare minimum break Iraq into multiple pieces. Iran may even be double dealing, and the prime minister of Iraq has said this, to get a third themselves. So Saudi Arabia gets a piece. This new state gets created out of the north and the eastern or western area with this ISIS group. And then that's a new area to stage attacks successfully and have plausible deniability that the West isn't involved into Syria. That's the larger plan. The issue is it's so naked, the massacres they're committing, the evil they're involved in, and then they use them. Oh my gosh, ISIS, we better take your rights away. What do they do when there's terror attacks in America? And we come back, I want to ask you, why do you think Dick Cheney's saying, get ready for a bigger 9/11? Obama's saying, look for mushroom clouds in Manhattan. Same thing from Feinstein. What else do you expect them to pull in this new phase? Proxy wars in Ukraine, dollar devaluation, food prices going up. What's the next big shoe to drop in David Icke's mind? A lot of times I get hysterical on air. My dad sent me a text last hour. He said, you sound hysterical. Well, you know what? That's real. I was a little bit hysterical last hour. I can get up here and act all stoic and manly and talk real slow. And I'll do that when that's really how I feel. But I think I've been successful at waking up about as many people as anybody has out there. When you talk to most people, they say, who woke you up to what's happening in the world? They'll say three names: Alex Jones, Ron Paul, or David Icke. Three very different individuals in many ways. But still, we've been the most successful. Why is that? We should study that. We should look at that. And I'm going to ask David that question in a moment and expand out what this new phase means. But some days I'm totally calm. Some days I'm screaming for an hour. Not as much as I used to. But I'm not in my comfort zone with what's going on. Our government publicly changing the name to Al-Qaeda. You can hear them in PR boardrooms coming up with this new thing like Coca-Cola. A new name, ISIS, makes it sound really cool. They're committing all these crimes, and it lets me know what they want to do to me. Wherever Christians are, not big establishment Christians, but old communities of Christians worldwide, the globalists want to go in and exterminate them. And I want to get David Icke's take on that because I have the raw numbers. The UN even admits that's happening, and getting a lot of other issues with David Icke. Briefly, we have some amazing supplements, and I didn't even plug anything last hour, skip breaks earlier. This is also how we fund our operation. So buy your war bonds in the InfoWar. Get a PrisonPlanet.tv membership. 11 people can use it. Share it with friends and family. It's only $5.95 a month. That helps pay for the bandwidth, the crew, the cameras, the reporters. You see how we've been expanding thanks to your support and your help. Get a PrisonPlanet.tv membership. See all my films in HD, the nightly news, a lot of other documentaries, and so much more. PrisonPlanet.tv. We're fighting the Prison Planet with PrisonPlanet.tv. Now, I want to thank those of you that are members. Go to InfoWarsLife.com. We're running a detox special with the Fluoride Shield Chelating Detox, discounted massively with the new Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, the only deep earth crystal form that we know of existing. Believe me, we tried to find it. It was hard. And it just has such an amazing effect on me and my family. You can see videos on the website with Dr. Group breaking down the effects of this and why they put all the bad halogens in the food and the water, but take the iodine out. And when there is iodine, it's the bound type. This is the true nascent iodine. Turns into a purple gas. We tested other iodines before manufacture. They don't do that. This is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. Research iodine science, and you'll find out what we're talking about. InfoWarsLife.com to see the still shots, the videos, and more. The Super Detox special is more than 30% off when you get both bottles together. A lot of other specials. We're going to sell out this week of the lung cleanse. It'll be another month till more of that comes in. Just a lot of great products at InfoWarsLife.com. And then, of course, at InfoWarsStore.com, hundreds of books and films made in America, pro-liberty apparel to meet like-minded people and to promote freedom and to support the broadcast. Everything we do has to benefit the InfoWar, raising human awareness and consciousness to what's happening, support you, be high quality, and support us. I only believe in win-win-wins. I'm obsessed with it. And I notice my whole life I've done that. That's why I've been successful and I sleep well at night. But now I'm more and more become totally obsessed with it. I mean, it's got to be a win-win-win-win-win. And everything at Infowars.com, at PrisonPlanet.com, at InfoWarsStore.com, at InfoWarsHealth.com, at InfoWarsLife.com is a win-win-win-win-win. That is my philosophy. With the globalist, they'll go 100 miles out of their way to make sure you don't get anything from them. We've all run into people that don't like making you dinner, don't like making you feel good, don't have hospitality. The type of people that really enjoy thinking they get something, you get nothing. And that's the New World Order predatory philosophy. And there's a battle for the future of this planet. DavidIcke.com is his website. We're very honored to have him on with us today. I'm trying to give him the floor now and let him break down all the questions I've thrown out about what is this next level the elite are moving into. In the football game analogy, we are seeing a big awakening, but where does he expect all this to go, David Icke?
Well, it's been a progression, clearly, along a road going way back. You know, people like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley with 1984 and Brave New World, they weren't coming from their imagination entirely, or even much of it. They were coming from a point of view of having access to the projected agenda.
And they both said that. They both said that in public white papers. Yeah.
And, you know, in my last couple of books, I quoted a man called Dr. Richard Day, who was a Rockefeller insider. He was an executive of Planned Parenthood. And in 1969, he was addressing a meeting of pediatricians in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And for some reason, only he knows, he asked people to not take notes and not record anything because he was going to tell them how the world was going to change. And what he then did was tell them what was coming and why. And one of the pediatricians did take notes and later did some interviews before he died explaining what this Richard Day said. And what Richard Day described, and remember, 1969, you know, it's what 20 years after Orwell. And he was describing the world we're living in today, or moving more and more in today, in all aspects of society. This is a plan that is projected forward in great detail. Therefore, what's coming is what they plan to come, and that will be upping the ante. It will be increasing the pressure. It will be moving further along the road in all these different areas, everything from GMO and food to additives like that, to the radiation agenda, which is phenomenal. You mentioned iodine a few minutes ago, Alex. Millions and millions and millions of times more radiation technologically generated than there was 50 years ago, that we're now kind of living in, like this sea of technological radiation. And given that we have an electromagnetic field, an electromagnetic level, that is going to impact and does impact upon us. And if the electromagnetic level, the electromagnetic field, which some people call the auric field, is disrupted by technological radiation, that plays through into the body as a distortion and a disruption, and we call that mental or emotional or physical dis-ease. So it's progressing, just as we can look back and see how it's progressed. But of course, there are certain points where it progresses very fast. because of events that are orchestrated. And of course, the best example of that is 9/11, where the agenda moved forward more in the 10 years after 9/11 than it had in a lot longer time before that. And when Cheney's talking about another 9/11, when Lindsey Graham, when he opens his mouth, just like John McCain, he is speaking the cabal's agenda. He's talking about another 9/11. Over here, we're getting just the same, Alex, with the Prime Minister David Cameron warning about, we've got to increase surveillance because of the terrorists coming back to Britain. We've got this guy today, Liam Fox. Liam Fox is a British politician who's simply an agent of Israel. That's all he is. He's an agent of Israel. And he has come out today and said we need to have more surveillance, etc., more Big Brother, in effect, to meet the challenge from jihadists coming back to Britain. So we are facing this fork in the road between the free thinkers and between those that just accept the agenda and download it, and the number that go that way or that way will decide where we go as a human race, because we've shown when they wanted to move the Syrian invasion, which is what it is, in fact, they wanted to move that along because it was behind the timeline. People opposing that stopped that bombardment and affected the agenda, because people like you and me and all the others that do this, the idea is not to be proved right. It's for what the agenda is not to happen. It's about using that information to head off what's happening. And so it's not just about, watching your own prison being built. Oh, look, they're putting the roof on now. Look, you see that? I told you they'd do that, didn't I? We need to stop the roof going on. And one of the things that is fundamental to that is that we put down the fault lines of divide and rule. Because what's happening in the Muslim world, in the Middle East, is just classic divide and rule. And we have different factions of politics. We have religions played off against each other. We have, scientific belief systems played off against religious belief systems. We need to put that down and say, hold on a second. There's a common theme here, and that's that we're all the target for this unfolding global fascist agenda. And therefore, if we don't come together now and put down our differences and focus on what should unite us all, and that's what is going to affect us all and is affecting us all, then when we're in some concentration camp eventually, if we get that far, then we can have a lovely discussion over who's got the best religion and who's got the best politics and who's got the best whatever. But by then it will be too late. And what they want, if you're targeting a vast population, and there's comparatively few of you, and my goodness, it's so few at the core of in the shadows, in the center, then you have to divide and rule the target population, and we allow it to happen so easily. I mean, look at the Middle East. I mean, we have people at war with each other over some argument centuries ago over who should be the natural or the right replacement for Mohammed. I mean, are we children? Are we mature adults, or are we children? And I'm sorry, in some cases, like what's happening in the Middle East, I apologize to children for using that analogy. But this is happening all over the place, where people are played off against each other. And while we're divided and ruled, we will be one thing. We'll be ruled. It's in our hands. We have the numbers, but only if we come together. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your politics are. I care if you truly care about freedom for everybody. Then we've got a chance.
David, when I raise this point, it's not for us to talk about how great we are. More and more I realize the fact that I've been so successful, you've been so successful, Ron Paul and others have been so successful, because I get the calls, I talk to folks on the street, I even talk to my detractors. They go, yeah, I don't like you, but you woke me up. Why have we been so successful at getting people to realize that the Federal Reserve's not federal? I mean, remember when it was so hard to just get people to realize that private banks control the Bank of England, that private banks ran the Federal Reserve, that there was a plan for a new world order. Now all that's admitted, that there was a plan to put satellite tracker boxes and taxation boxes in all the cars. Now it's here. People now are listening to us and realizing they may not agree with our in-game analysis, but this is going on. But they say, well, what are we going to do anyways? Well, what are we going to do if the rest of it comes into fruition? Because we can see the globalists want to turn off the resources. The globalists want us sick and dead. The globalists believe they're going to merge with machines and become gods, which is what the elite have been told by the spider at the center. Whatever that is, we're living in a science fiction horror movie, but simultaneously, there is the beauty of my children and playing with my dogs and sunsets and friends and honorableness. There's so much more good in the world. It's a very delicate balance I'm trying to get at. Some people ignore the New World Order and say, I'm just going to live a great life. That's how I beat them. But then you allow their evil to grow. But if you just focus on their evil and fight it, you become so pessimistic that then they defeat you because you're focused on them. That's almost like a form of worship. So where is the balance in that? Because I feel in my gut, and I intellectually see, we are entering the most incredible time in human development ever that will decide our fate, not just here, but on a trillion star systems. Literally, this is a great test, and we're about to go into this zone. We've entered the edge of it, the jump point, the flash point, the critical mass point, and I just want to somehow, I just constantly feel like I should be doing better as I enter this key point, because it's just so humbling to be at this point and to see the understanding, my understanding, accelerating. The stuff I won't even get into on air. It's so incredible. You've talked about it, but I keep a lot of my own views private because they're just too incredible. I mean, I just feel sorry for the people that serve the system now. I realize they, as you've said, don't even know what's going on. General Petraeus doesn't even know. I mean, I'm beginning to understand it's so compartmentalized is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it's incredibly compartmentalized, and if it was not, it couldn't work, because you have to keep people right up really close to the spider, really, in ignorance of the full magnitude of what's going on. And, you know, if you concentrate only, and I'm not saying people shouldn't, I do this, we need to know this, but if you concentrate only on the level of banking scams and manipulated wars, you're still just walking around the outer rim of the rabbit hole, really. You've only just started to enter it. It's so deep. And it's understanding the nature of reality is fundamental to understanding what's actually going on. And because the daily experience of people and what they've been taught in the education system and by mainstream science is that, you know, this world that they're living in is real and it's somehow solid, although quantum physics has proved, of course, that it can't be. I mean, you talk about atoms making up a solid world. Atoms had no solidity. How can they? It's an illusion. And once you realize it's illusory, once you realize it's information, decoding information, it's like the wireless internet, and you look around. I've not got the wireless internet here, but if I had, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's an information field within the unseen to the tiny, tiny frequency range, visible light that we can actually see and experience. It's ridiculous how narrow visible light is, our visual world that we think is
We're basically blind.
Yeah, we are in that sense.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.
I have the headline right here out of National Review. This is what an open border looks like. And you can just walk back and forth however you want. It's totally wide open. They've ordered to stand down. We've documented that. Meanwhile, they now have the Army and National Guard and State Guard at public events all over Texas, at marathons, at kite festivals. You show up and the Army. Now, remember, you pull up in a green field. There isn't even an entrance at Silker Park. But they're there just searching people. And again, I'm not against the troops from Camp Mabry. The media will say he's against troops. That's the mind control. A suicide bomber would just go bomb the checkpoint, and that just happened in Pakistan last week. But the whole issue is that the government's running and financing them with the airlift of evil, everything David was talking about. He's graciously said he'll stay with us 20 minutes into the next hour to get deeper into the rabbit hole, to talk about solutions, to talk about all the pedophile scandals that he first talked about, that he said BBC is basically run by pedophiles. He worked there. Now it just keeps coming out. There's so many movies like Under the Skin that parallel what David Icke says is at the center of the spider web. And he hasn't seen it yet, but he said, oh, I want to talk about this. So, David, in this segment we've got left, this 5 minutes, talk about why, whether it's the X-Men or the Superman or all these movies now are like, from our perspective, admitting that there's false flag, Captain America, Winter Soldier. Why are they doing this?
Well, in the nature of reality and the way we interact with reality and the way that thought manifests as what we experience, I have this phrase: what we believe, we perceive, and what we perceive, we experience. If you can program someone to believe something, then that will become their reality. And if you can get people to take it on collectively, that will become the collective reality. It's very much like the stage hypnotist who puts a belief system or a belief in reality, that's what they're doing, into the mind of the stooge on the stage, and then the stooge on the stage experiences that, whether it's someone naked in the audience that isn't, whether there's an elephant in the audience but there isn't, whatever. That downloaded belief manifests as their experienced reality. And, I've been watching this for years now, Alex, way back. And it's virtually a tidal wave in filming terms of movies that are portraying one after the other the world that they want to create, the world that the New World Order, as it's being called, is ultimately leading to. And what it's doing, it's downloading that, on one level, that belief, it's putting it in the subconscious, and that makes it much more likely to collectively manifest because of what I'm talking about. What you believe, you perceive. What you perceive, you experience. And if we take on this subconscious belief, it doesn't have to be conscious. In this unfolding Orwellian state, then we will collectively manifest that while thinking it's happening externally. And another level of it is it's making it familiar to us. It's making it, if you like, as it literally comes in, they're making it less of a shock.
This is a 5-minute segment. They'll have a 12-minute segment with David Icke. Then our reporters from the border with breaking news, live video, audio feeds coming up. David, you got cut off by the break. Continue getting into how this programming works, which you even read mainline psychology books, they admit, but the public isn't aware of it. And then I want to come back from break and talk about all the latest scandals, your new book, and what their world will look like if they get what they want versus the fairy tale happy transhumanism they're selling.
Well, yeah, the transhumanism agenda is absolutely fundamental because they want to introduce technology to the human body. Because what we are is consciousness. That's our true state. Not form. That's just an experience of various kinds. We are consciousness. When people have near-death experiences and they leave the body and they can still see and they can understand realities and perceive realities over multiple realities at the same time. So many endless people have had near-death experiences have told this same story. And when you come back in the body, if you like, what the body does is it locks you into this tiny frequency band called visible light. So when you leave the body, you leave that limitation that the body concentrates our reality, our attention into this narrow band of frequencies. And what the controllers want, what the manipulators want, is to suppress our awareness, to suppress our consciousness, so we don't expand beyond this frequency band. Because once you do, you start to see the world in a different way. Because most people at the moment, although it's changing, because they are so focused on the five senses, everything is filtered through the five senses. It means that they're in this world and they're of it. The only source of information they have to get a fix on who they are, where they are, world events, anything, is information, when you're in that five sense mode alone, coming through the eyes and the ears. And who controls that? The education system, the media, and peer pressure from people who've been through the education system and been programmed by the media. So once you're in that mode, you are little more than a computer terminal on an internet. But when you expand your awareness beyond that point, and you go beyond that limitation, you start to perceive things, you start to have insights, because now, although you're in this world in terms of your body and your experience of this reality, you're not of the world totally in terms of your perception of reality. And when people expand their consciousness and start to, in effect, look into the world instead of being in it and of it, that's when you're called mad. That's when you're called crazy, because you are seeing a reality that most other people aren't seeing. And I've used this analogy before, but I think it just so explains where we are. We live in a madhouse. And if you're born in a madhouse and you grow up in a madhouse, madness to you is sanity. And people who come into the madhouse or can see beyond it and say, actually, this is a madhouse and this is why, those that can see only the madhouse, who think it's normal, that think it's sane, they think the people that can see beyond it are mad. This is what's gone on throughout human history. And what the controllers want is they want to hold us in that five-sense reality so we don't go into that greater expanded awareness of everything. And that's why, if you look at the world, Alex, it's all about the five senses. Touch this, smell this, look at this. It's all about pulling you into the five senses.
It's the new sixth sense. They want to shut off the sixth sense with a new artificial consciousness. Stay there. We were talking about how the globalists openly try to shutter people's awareness, and that means putting you into a false kind of Times Square television box where they can feed you what they want, where you're not even outdoors. But beyond that, transhumanism is sold as this empowering system, but it's all got Trojan horses in it to dehumanize and to take us beyond just the five senses into an artificial consciousness, synthetic tyranny. And I want to finish up on that subject with David Icke, get into some of the other things that are happening and where they'll take us if they're able to win. But first, throwing one more point out, North American Union. They are completely getting rid of our borders. We know borders are an old tyranny, another construct. But you don't go to pure libertarianism by having open borders and saying millions can come here and get everything free. The globalists are pushing it because it's a new political bloc, again, for divide and conquer. And Breitbart reports on the train of death to the U.S. all the way from Central and South America, all the way from El Salvador, right up into the United States. The representative for the Catholic Relief Services told the Colorado Gazette, as well as other publications, that no, they load them up south of Mexico, and Mexico now lets them through as long as they stay on the train. They sit on the top. They fall off. They die by the thousands. This has been going on for months now, and they just let them come right to our border. Then the Border Patrol openly takes them, loads them on buses, and buses them deeper into the U.S. and releases them. We have that on video. Meanwhile, if I want to fly, they want to grow up my children, and they have Army at the Kite Festival searching people. So clearly, David Icke, this is a total fraud. Petraeus told the London Telegraph that this is part of the new North American Union. Can you briefly speak to that? Then I want to talk big picture with you.
Well, I mean, the great block on this whole union network, whether it's the European Union or the North American Union and all these others around the world, is the nation state. And it is the sense of self-identity, or national self-identity, if you like. And one of the things you see in their documents when they're talking about how they're going to, they are doing it, when they were talking about how they intended to socially engineer society and get society how they want, one of the things was unfettered immigration. This was in their technique to destroy a sense of national identity. And so in the European Union, of course, the very nature of the European Union is that within it, there are no borders in terms of people coming in and out, virtually no borders. And so what you're doing is you're taking loads of people from this culture and you're putting them in that culture, and loads of people from that culture, put them in that culture. And in the end, it's just one kind of universal culture, if you like. The sense of national identity has gone. Now, personally, I'm not a nationalist. I love the landscape of Britain, but I'm not, Britain. I'm none of that stuff. But if we're going to be streetwise, we need to go beyond that and understand why it's happening. And the more that you can destroy a sense of national identity, this is the key, the more you're diluting resistance to having that national identity officially deleted by bringing these unions together. And of course, the Prime Minister of Italy has now come out and said that when they have the presidency of Europe, he's going to press for a United States of Europe. Well, what he is just a puppet, because the United States of Europe was planned from well before the original common market ever started.
And you were a conspiracy theorist if you said that, and you've broken it down so beautifully. It's not that you're just rah-rah USA. They're getting rid of the borders to then bring in groups who will vote to get rid of any semblance of Bill of Rights and Constitution, and to form the new core of the social workers to prey on the old group, which is what they've done. I've had members of your parliament on. Most of the social workers are foreigners. This is their balkanization plan. They're erasing all cultures, and they've brought in economic systems in Latin America to enslave them. So they have no choice but to come up here. You can really see how they've rolled this whole plan down. And it's not that we're even against these immigrants. We've got to be streetwise and see if the globalists are for it, we need to be against it because it's part of a larger plan.
Yeah, this is the point, Alex. I mentioned earlier about divide and rule. And what they do is they play off people that don't want mass immigration against the people who are coming in, the migrants. And yet both, this is the thing we need to understand, both are victims of this cabal. The immigrants coming into various countries in vast numbers are being used and manipulated just as much as the people in the country. And this is where
and that's how we communicate with them. I've actually been successful because we go past the paradigm and say, can't have you all in here getting everything free, but I love you. We need to make your country free, and explain it to them. But it's just so incredibly sophisticated what the globalists have done. Let's shift gears now in the time we've got left with David Icke of davidicke.com. And I want to talk some about your book, maybe even twist your arm till the bottom of the hour, but I know you're busy. David, what happens if they win? We know it's not the heavenly transhumanism Ray Kurzweil world, because we've got the globalist-owned documents. It's 90+% population reductions. The rest of us merge with machines like something out of the Borg. Where does the spider want to take us ultimately?
Well, it will be a world in which people have no ability to free think. Their thoughts will be downloaded to them, and they will love their servitude. Some of these transhumanists are talking about that. I mean, this is what Aldous Huxley was talking about. You get people to love their servitude. Although, you know, they're robots, you manipulate their minds so they actually enjoy it. We've got a guy in this country called Warwick, Professor Warwick at Reading University. You know, don't start me off. Who's talking, you know, he's been one of these people that have pushed the microchip agenda and the transhumanist agenda. And he's saying, well, you know, if you can feel good and feel nice and feel happy, why not get attached to the matrix? And it's the complete end of the human being as we know it, where you have the ability to process information and come to your own conclusions. That human will exist no more. It will be a biological robot that will just respond to stimuli.
And now DARPA admits what we knew decades ago, and we're kooks, that, oh, we're going to start brain chipping the troops, and, oh, we've been doing tests for decades. Yeah. They had remote control rats and roaches, as you know, 30 years ago, and now they're rolling it out. And, hey, it's great if you've got epilepsy and a brain stimulator chip makes you be able to live happy. The problem is that's now attached to the internet, that wireless system, and to the spider, and you literally now have a control node from the spider hooked into you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, there's this movie that's going around in Britain at the moment, it would have been in America earlier, called Transcendence. And that was about the internet becoming conscious. And we're now having scientists speculating on whether the internet could become conscious. Well, I think it's already probably conscious.
I agree.
And the idea is to lock us in to that technological consciousness so that it is feeding us all our thoughts. And it's something that sounds, well, even less and less now, but to many people will sound completely science fiction. But that's where we're going. And so when we are seeing this movement to have brain-computer interfaces, that's because the body is basically, I've been saying this for so long, it's a biological computer. And the brain is a biological computer. And it's because of that, one's a biological computer, one's like a technological computer, but because the principles are the same in how they work, the basic principles, that's how you can have brain-computer interfacing. The idea is to make that the norm so everyone is connected technologically to this technological collective mind.
And again, the consciousness of this new AI system being fed the ideas, the dreams of humans, is now a future predicting system with almost total accuracy of mass movements, cornering the human market, and that ends free will, because if you can track what the future, you can then put in data that will actually change the course and control the future. How long do you think stuff really gets crazy?
I wonder, Alex, I wonder if that's not already happening.
I agree. Can you, in your gut, do you, a lot of people are picking up on the new consciousness. A lot of people feel the dread. I don't think it's a very sweet thing that's been created.
Now, I have been convinced for a long time that we are being fed a reality. And the more that we, if you like, get programmed into it, like with these movies that are portraying the world they want, the more powerfully it affects us. But it's like I was saying earlier, you know, if I had the wireless internet here, no one could see it, but I tune a computer into that frequency to pick up the wireless internet, and I have a whole reality on my screen that can be picked up in anywhere in the world, in any culture, because of the World Wide Web. And all you're doing is locking into that World Wide Web through the computer terminal, and therefore you're accessing that collective reality.
Undoubtedly, the globalists are after free will. Undoubtedly, they're into the occult. Every society, even though they didn't communicate with each other, built pyramids, step pyramids, or temples, and sacrificed children, ritual abuse of children. And David, I know you're a busy guy. It's always great to have you up. I appreciate you coming on. In closing, I want you to talk about your new book, but I want you to answer the question, because I've thrown out there a few times, and I know you're not into your ego or whatever, but we need to analyze why you've been successful, myself, and a handful of others as kind of the icons of the awakening, to understand what's made us successful at waking people up. So briefly, why do you think you've been so successful? Why do you think I've been so successful when there's been so many other articulate people out there saying, you know, some of the same things? Why has that been?
Well, I think the only way to succeed in this arena is one word: persistence. When you refuse to take no for an answer, when you refuse to even accept the possibility that you will give up, and that you know that the day you keel over and leave this reality, you'll still be doing it, and you'll still be trying, and you'll still be doing what you can, then when big challenges come up, when you get the abuse, when you get people trying to undermine you, when people attack you, when people ridicule you, because giving up is simply not an option, it means that instead of feeling sorry for yourself and walking away and sitting in a corner, or walking away and thinking, you know, I'm not doing this anymore, you keep walking, you keep moving, you do more, you are persistent. And when you do that, you break down barriers. And key to that over the years is that what people have said is shown to have validity. I mean, when I was at the height of my ridicule, which was almost of historic proportions in this country in the 1990s, early 1990s, I was of the belief that if what I said had any validity, then it would be shown eventually to be so. And then all that abuse would start, and ridicule would start to fade away. And what do you mean it will go? My goodness me, it hasn't. But it would start to fade as more and more people went, hold on a second. What this bloke said then, it's happening. And then you go on to the next thing, more persistence, and that process repeats itself and repeats itself, and eventually you part the seas, if you like, and more people start to see, actually, this person, whoever it is actually worth listening to, because they've got a track record. Look, it's happening, what they said. And this is why I say to people, if you hide and keep your mouth shut and don't speak your truth because you fear the reaction of others, then you are not going to have that process of eventually people saying, hold on a second, what he said is happening. My goodness, what else is he saying? Because you've never said it, because you were frightened to, because people would ridicule you or condemn you or whatever. If we don't have the backbone to speak our truth, whatever that truth may be, then how can any of us talk about freedom? Because there's no greater freedom than being able to speak your truth no matter what it is.
That's right.
Without that fundamental freedom, there is no other freedom.
That's right.
So it's persistence, and it's having the balls, basically, to say things that are unacceptable to society at that time, take the consequences of that, but keep saying them until the day dawns when people start to say, hold on a second, he's not as mad as we thought he was. Look. And without those two things, then you're never going to be successful in communicating this information.
And it's like that anywhere in life. They want people to be spectators who aren't on the field. And I didn't really know the answer to that when I asked it. But that's total truth, what you said, Veritas, sage advice. Having the basic fundamentals, having your instincts, having the research, the history, and knowing you're right, and never stopping, that's what they're scared of. And that's why we've been successful. We haven't been caught off in the infighting. It's because we had a passion for freedom and truth. We've been successful. David Icke, it's great to know you. DavidIcke.com, the new book's out. Thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate you spending time with us, and hopefully you'll be back with us again very soon.
So we have even right there.
What's his name?